Walter McHugh tribute speech. Now it's safe to say that we live in a judgmental society. In fact, we live in a society that's so judgmental, it's to a fault. From our first encounter, we immediately and continuously judge someone based on their physical characteristics, such as their stature, their clothes, and their hygiene. However, most of these assumptions are not always accurate. If we made all of our decisions based solely on impression, then Albert Einstein would just have been written off as a lunatic. Napoleon Bonaparte, no one thought he would amount to anything. And Tim Duncan would be undrafted because sports analysis said he can't jump high enough and he's not athletic enough to play at the NBA level. What makes these men remarkable, however, is their ability to work to be who they were told they could never become. Albert Einstein went on to create a law of relativity, which is still puzzling scientists well into the 21st century. Napoleon Bonaparte created the largest French empire ever to be created, and Tim Duncan now comfortably sits as a 4-time NBA champion, as well as a 3-time NBA Finals Most Valuable Player. These men's stories are not unlike that of Audie Murphy, the most decorated American veteran of World War II. Audie overcame stereotype and assumptions and exercised his bravery and patriotism to become the baddest badass in American history. Now, Audie wasn't born to a wealthy or an established military family. He wasn't set in a line of lineage of greatness destined to be successful. Audie was born to 2 sharecroppers in 1925 in Kinston, Texas, with a less than stable family situation. His father wasn't around much, and then finally, when Audie was 15, his father deserted him, his mother, and his 12 siblings. To add insult to injury, only 1 year later, Audie's mother passed away. This inspired him, though. This inspired him a lot. He then went out to be a Marine. Merely standing at 5 feet 5 inches tall and 180 pounds, the Marines laughed in his face. Then the Army paratroopers, and then the Navy. Until finally, in 1942, the Army's Infantry Division accepted him, and then he entered into basic training. In basic training, Audie had dreams of becoming a glider pilot. However, they were quickly cut short when Audie passed out in a flight simulator, quickly earning himself the nickname Baby among his comrades, and his officers suggested that he just become a cook or military baker. However, once he entered battle, Audie quickly established himself as important and began to rise above his peers. In the invasion of Sicily, Audie took out 2 Italian officers, quickly earning himself the rank of a corporal. Not much, but as Audie began to climb in rank, he contracted a severe case of malaria, which would last him the rest of the war. He sat out for the initial landing for the next battle, and then he never looked back. And everything changed for him in August of 1944. Audie was set into France, and his division was in Operation Dragoon. Now, they were surrounded by machine gun nests. However, the Americans were up. They were winning the battle. A German machine gun operator waved a white flag, signifying his surrender. Then Audie's best friend, Private Laddie Tipton, saw the surrender and lowered his gun. No later did that man turn around and shoot Private Laddie Tipton, killing him instantly. Enraged, Audie took his rifle, killed that man, his whole sniper nest, and then, mind you, still with malaria, he stormed the machine gun nest he just destroyed, used their guns, and shot and killed everyone in a 100-yard radius, including 2 other machine gun nests and several snipers. Later that year, Audie got shot in the hip with a sniper rifle bullet. It became infected, but not even that could stop the one-man Hulk. 4 months later, it was January of 1945. Audie was back deployed in France, and it was nighttime. It was so cold that his hair was frozen to the ground beneath him. Then, suddenly, mortar shells attacked his foxhole, killing the other 2 men in his foxhole and leaving superficial wounds in Audie's legs. From here, he ordered all of his men to retreat. Then, he grew balls of steel, so heavy, the hands of God couldn't have held them at this moment. With shrapnel in his leg, Audie crawled to an abandoned, flaming tank destroyer filled with ammunition and gasoline, and fired its .50 caliber machine gun until there were no more Germans in sight. Just take this into consideration. This is a man, 5'5", 110 pounds. It was freezing cold. He had malaria, a shattered hip, and he was actively bleeding out of his leg with shrapnel in it. And he crawled to a death trap and fired a gun for an hour until he ran out of bullets, killing 6 tanks and several hundred men. The few of Audie's teammates who were still alive were so stunned at his heroicness, they were jaw-dropped in their trenches. Private Anthony Abramsky said, "It was like he was standing on top of a time bomb. He stood on that TD chassis in full range from ankle to head of enemy fire, silhouetted against the snow tree background." Now, Audie Murphy was truly a man who worked past stereotypes and assumptions. He overcame physical and emotional barriers set in front of him. He made a name for himself, and a marvelous one too, for being turned down by 3 armed forces and asked to just turn down the army and become a cook. It's safe to say Audie Murphy was the original go-getter. In fact, he went and got himself 33 Medals of Honor, including 5 from France and 1 from Belgium. And the best Hollywood could use to depict him, Rambo. Didn't do him justice at all. And Audie actually wrote a book and starred in many more movies, which none of them could depict how badass and how heroic he was in World War II. Murphy should not only be remembered for his bravery and badassery, however. He should be made a role model for all those using excuses in their lives. If he could do what he did on numerous occasions, with malaria, freezing weather, a shattered hip, and shrapnel in his leg, there is no reason that any of us should be able to make excuses in our daily lives.